All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Villain Viper podcast. I'm one of your hosts here today. I'm Elk, and along with me today we have.
Ashley. This is where y'all introduce yourselves. Yeah.
It's a terrible introduction. It's me. It's Tristan.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, whether you're listening live in our lounge or whether you're joining us after the fact on YouTube. We're here to talk about the events of episodes 9 and 10 of Villain Viper Season 8, Deathcast Calling, our season based on the book They Both Die at the End, and talking overall about the impact some of the twists we've put into this season have been having, how we envisioned them, and how they're playing out compared to what we expected when we planned them. So, when we last met here, we'd just gotten through a couple of rather interesting eliminations in terms of the characters that we had lost. So, in the final 17 tribal was when we lost Ava, immediately following on the heels of Logan and Saggy, and and then immediately after that we had lost in our 8th episode Jack. So at this point we were going into the final 15 episode, swapping our contestants onto 3 tribes of 5. Do we have any reactions to the way that this swap played out before the challenge started when we saw our 3 tribes of 5 that we were going to have?
I don't even remember what the tribe divisions were, to be honest.
Yeah, it's been some time.
So on Manhattan 4.0, we had Peanut, Lisa, both Sean's, and Elle. On
Elle would have went
Queen,
home.
what?
Let's talk about them individually, like, because if you list them all
Yeah.
off at the same time, I'm gonna forget. To be honest.
So on that Manhattan 4.0 tribe, it definitely seemed like that was an interesting mix of people that we had. If Manhattan's going to go on to lose that challenge, like this could really shake up the game.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know actually, because like if we look at confessionals, like Lisa and Elle had a little bit of a heart to heart and like said that like they wanted to work together, but like they wouldn't vote together. So I was confused. And then also like Peanut was like kind of like in the Zap and Co side, like a little bit, like through his connection with Alex, but Alex like was slowly like losing favor with that side. So I don't really know where Peanut was. And then Sean was also like loosely connected to the Zap and Co side. And then we know Elle is like obviously very connected to the Zap and Co side. And then Sean is like obviously very connected to the Lisa and Co side. So I don't know. Would it have actually maybe been Sean? Like SEA?
Interesting. I think there's a chance where that could end up being EA Sean. My personal prediction, just looking at this tribe before any of the events the episode played out, is that I do think Elle would have been in at least a tight hurdle to navigate. I think there's a chance he could have gotten out of it. But I think that Elle was probably the most obviously in trouble person on this tribe, especially if Lisa's trying to round up some resistance to the Zap side. I think there's definitely a world where that resistance lands on Elle as the target, despite any heart to hearts that Lisa and Elle end up having.
I think that Elle and Sean would have voted together, and then I feel like Sean AU, and then Peanut and Sean EA would have gone for Elle. So then it would have really just been up to Lisa, on like depending on who went.
I think that's a reasonable description of the dynamics of that track. Then we move on over to the Queens 3.0 tribe, which ironically was all 5 of the surviving players of the original Queens tribe. So this was Malachi, Izzy, Ginger Snap, Chip, and Alex.
Yeah, bye-bye Malachi. Even
See,
Malachi
I
knew he would have went.
see. I think there's a chance here that because Alex at this point is starting to have his doubts about Zap and starting to think that it's time to start weakening Zap. I think there's a chance that Alex, Malachi, and Chip, for example, could have worked together to take a shot at Izzy. There is at least one possibility of how that could have played out.
Hey, no
I would-
fucking way.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I would I would disagree just because Chip says in her CFs that like Izzy's like an older sister, like a mom to her. Like she has her like really high on her trust rankings.
That and Zap saved Chip.
Yeah.
Zap was Chip's lifeline, and we saw how loyal Chip is. Chip
That's
will
true.
ruin her own game for the people who save her in this game. So no chance Chip takes that shot. And Chip actually
Yeah,
leaves.
I think Alex would want to take that shot, or at least would talk about wanting to take that shot, whether he ends up going through with it or not. But yeah, getting Chip on board is definitely the biggest obstacle. And finally, we get our Brooklyn tribe consisting of Gold, Zap, Disc, Tig, and Chris. And on this tribe, we had a pretty clear majority 3 made up of Gold, Zap, and Tig, and 2 on the outs of Disc and Chris. And pretty much from the minute they landed at their beach, the dynamics of this tribe were pretty clear. And Chris and Disc were definitely thinking of live to see another day mentality, while the other 3 were, pretty solidly secure in their comfortable majority.
Yeah, I mean, not much to say about that. It's Disc and Chris had to have been I mean, we could see it in their confessionals, but they got onto that tribe and they were like, oh, fuck, 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 because yeah, you're screwed, buddy.
And as this episode plays out, it turns out that even if they somehow manage to get Gold or Tig to try to turn things on Zap, this is also the episode in which Zap goes on to find the bicycle. Which the bicycle advantage allows a person to mutiny to a tribe that won a challenge if their tribe would be going to tribal. It's effectively a safety without power that moves you to another tribe for the remainder of the episode as the form of giving you the safety without power. Um, but yeah, that said, these 3 tribes, there are definitely people on each tribe who know that this is a must-win challenge for them. There were definitely some people who were desperate individually on each of the 3 tribes to pull out the win in this challenge. Now, this challenge goes on to be our Gartic Phone challenge. And what makes this challenge such an interesting challenge to deal with is that the players who go first for each tribe are ultimately going to have a lot of influence on the final scores of this challenge. And because if their drawings or their guesses aren't close enough to what the sentences are, the people after them have functionally very little way to score points. We actually saw a couple of tribes end up getting lucky enough to move back onto the right track after leaving it in 1 or 2 of the prompts for at least 1 or 2 of the words. But on the whole, if your people up front were not coming through for you, you were going to have a real hard time down the side of this challenge. Before we talk about the actual results of this challenge, do we have any thoughts about the Gartic Phone challenge as a concept for this season and what our hopes were for it, especially as we can compare to how it played out?
The person who created it, unfortunately, is no longer on Discord. So
Wait, who created it?
Nehemiah.
Oh, I see.
Though we have had versions of this challenge in a couple of past seasons, so we've definitely seen this before. And I think that if all three tribes were deeply invested in trying to win this, this actually would be a pretty competitive challenge. We gave them three fairly hard sentences. So the first sentence was the pigeon sits on the restaurant in New York City. The second sentence was the teacher looked sadly at the ringing phone. And the third sentence was the sisters play with the toy fire truck at the foster home. Um, one of which are especially easy sentences to draw. But the way this plays out is that almost everyone is able to get at least some of the points related to the first sentence and the second sentence. The third sentence, they're able to get like words like kids or children or things like that to get some point. But um, the toy fire truck did not really survive any of the tribe's drawings, let alone the foster home. Like it very quickly morphed into just something like outside neighborhood parents, which if you could even get to home, you might have had a little bit of a chance to get like a half point for that, but no one really got there on that particular keyword. It was very interesting to see how some of the drawings played out. The Queen's tribe actually did very well in this challenge. They got 13.5 points. The maximum score on this was 36. But honestly, if this were a challenge that we were playing where everyone was trying their absolute hardest, I would have expected a typical highest score to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12. 36 was not remotely close to being a realistic score. So that 13.5 from Queens was honestly a really, really strong performance. They had good drawings. They kept a lot of the meaning of the words enough that people were able to get there. And a little goofy by the end, but on the whole, the Queen's drawings came out really well. Then we get Manhattan's drawings. And things started to go a little bit wrong for Manhattan's drawings. It wasn't necessarily like horrifically wrong, but like we start getting like people spraying someone with a water hose in the children one. We start getting like a person crying because they're struggling in school in the middle sentence. And in the first sentence, it ends up focusing more on like a bird's nest than it ends up focusing on like the idea of the restaurant or the city. So just a little bit of focus in the wrong places. They're going to end up getting 7.5 on this challenge. I think that that's the sort of score that under normal circumstances would lead to a close fight for who is going to tribal. But then we get to the Brooklyn tribe, and Gold and Zap went up front for the Brooklyn tribe and just straight up decided to 100% put the fix in, throw the challenge, basically make it impossible for their tribe to score any points. One of Zap's sentences literally read, "I am planning to fail," and another one said, "I am going to a funeral." Um, Amazingly, no one aside from Zap seems to have noticed those actual words in the guest chart that gets posted at the end. Like some people confirm that Zap definitely threw just based on looking at how far off base they got. But no one's even talking about I planning fail or I going funeral showing up on the guest chart, which was kind of wild. Like Zap noticed it herself, of course, but everyone else did not really seem to notice this. So with that said, Brooklyn just got like half of a single point on this challenge and nothing beyond that, which resulted in like a very clear, okay, 3 versus 2, like one of you two is going home, and there is functionally nothing that you can do about it.
I mean, there was like a point where Disc thought that he had gold.
Yeah, that's true. Like they did try to give a little bit of hope, like to the point where Disc and Chris thought, like, hey, we can vote with gold, turn things on Zap. There was like a bit of a chance. Even on the other tribes, like as soon as the scores come out, it's like, okay, they threw. We know it. They threw. In particular, Alex and Lisa noticed the throw. Alex was saying something along the lines of, finally winning a challenge, only feels half as good when it's blatantly obvious that someone didn't want to win. And Lisa is just completely angry at the throw happening. So we've got like a couple people very evocatively reacting to the realization that like there is a fix and it is in.
I thought it was interesting how Alex reacted because the other episode he was like upset that they didn't throw for him, and then this one he was upset that they did throw.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that speaks a little bit to like the complex sort of motivations and emotions that go into a game like this. Like even a concept as simple as the concept of throwing a challenge can either be something that brings like hope and gratitude or can bring feelings of, oh God, what? Like I wanted to earn this. And I think that that combination of feelings and emotions definitely like shows through in Alex's reactions to the two different times.
Yeah.
That said, like it was interesting to see the dynamics of the majority group because Zap is perceived as being the most dominant player in the game right now. And at the very least, all three in that alliance, in Zap, Tig, and Gold, will agree that Zap is perceived as the most dominant figure in that alliance, with Tig and Gold perceived as less dominant figures, regardless of what they actually feel about their influence on the game is. And because of this, Zap sees Disc as a bigger shield than Chris and seems interested in like keeping Disc as a shield for the future, while Gold and Tig don't have as much reason to keep Disc as a shield, given that Zap is already a shield for them, and therefore like reject Zap's potential interest in turning things onto Chris. And the dynamic of how different things are good for the individual members of the Alliance based on their current threat level and perceptions of their control of the game was probably the most interesting dynamic of this episode. Watching the group of three decide which of the other two they want out and why it is better for each of the three to have one of the two go out.
Like based on what I was seeing, I thought that Chris would have been a better option for all of them because I kind of felt like Disc and Zap would have had that rivalry at Merge, and Disc would have been much more loyal to Tig and Gold than Chris would have been. Even if Chris is upset that they like blindsided him, but I do think that Disc would have worked with them more than Chris is going to. And
I
then I
think
kind of
that
just felt like, sorry, I kind of
I,
just
I
felt
think
like,
that most likely neither one was likely to work with him in the future. I think it's just a matter of like which of the two is more useful to have in the game as an opponent.
yeah,
But that does bring us to like one of our big topics that you're going to be hearing over and over again over the course of this podcast episode. Zap is running out of shields, is coming in extremely high on visibility, and is desperately looking for somewhere, anywhere to like hide a little. Like the runway is running out. The other interesting dynamic that plays out over the course of this tribal is through the duos, Tig communicating to Elle to tell others, including Lisa, that like Tig did not know how severely Zap was planning to throw this challenge and like sow some fake dissension in the alliance to sort of leave future options and relationships open to be explored in different ways, which I think was actually a really smart move by Tig here.
yeah. Tig's like trying to make a better path for himself, I would say. But he's just a little bit delusional in my eyes. Like, he thinks that Zap is going to be easy to beat at the end, and I don't really agree with that. Because, like, her entire alliance, like, all of those people are giving her credit and giving her a bigger threat level. Because, like, she's been doing stuff, and they've been letting her take claim for it and just hiding behind her. But it's just, I don't get how he's going to be able to claim things towards the end.
Well, I would say that Tig is. I mean, sure, Tig is saying in confessionals that he thinks he can beat Zap at the end, which I think, yeah, there deserves to be a hefty dose of skepticism around that. What I do see is I see a world where, like, if the head of the alliance is taken out, right? If Zap is gone, Tig is suddenly in one of the best positions in the game. And like
Yeah.
Tig is even positioning himself well for if and when there is a civil war in that alliance. Tig is trying to like keep a relationship with Lisa, who has almost no relationship with Zap of any positive nature at all. And just sort of trying to keep those ties in place so that if and when that civil war happens, like Tig can be on the winning side of it and Zap will be on the losing side of the civil war.
Yeah. He's also starting to separate from L, I would say. He's saying that there's like no good like reasons to keep duos in the game, which I thought was like interesting. Because I do think that he's planning on getting rid of Zap and L around the same time period.
I think he's probably going to take out Zap sooner than he takes out L. Like I think shortly after the time of recording, like Tig is probably in like 2 to 3 episodes time looking at taking out Zap. Whereas
Yeah.
L, I think he would let L be taken out if it helps his game, but I don't think he would actively take out L until like final 6, final 5 kind of range. Is the vibe I'm getting. Like it's a hands off if it happens, so be it. But I don't think he's looking to take the shot at L right away.
From what I see, I think that he's taking Zap out at final 8 and then taking L out at final 6.
Okay. Yeah. I think he probably ends up taking out Zap more like 10 or 11 instead of. But I agree with like the 6 on L. It is what Tig would want to do. Now again, whether he gets the chance or not, etc.
Yeah. I'm only getting the 8 because that's what L was hinting at, and I think Ginger.
Um, moving on from our final 15 episode. Oh, any closing thoughts about Disc the player? I guess we talked all about what happened to Disc, but let's not move on from this episode without taking a moment to appreciate like how much Disc brought to this season. Like Disc was a pretty good player on this season, one of the better players on the anti-zap side of the game. Um, if we don't have a swap this bad, or even we just don't have a challenge throw, and like Fair Tribe survives this challenge, like I do think Disc is in a reasonably good spot going into merge. Like visibility may be a little bit high, but on the whole, not a terrible position going into merge.
Yeah. I think what hurt him the most was Eva going at the Greed Tribal, but he still like had like room to bounce back. And I think that if he was at merge, there would be like a stronger singles alliance because right now we have singles who are like fighting with each other or like just don't like each other.
But like imagine that Malachi goes out here, for example, right? Or imagine that like one of the Shawns goes out here or something like that, or even L goes out here, right? If any of those things happen, Disc is in such a good spot in this game.
Yeah. He always had like such a good spot from the beginning, and then even as his allies were dropping, he just stayed in a good spot.
Fisk is one of the players I was like definitely most impressed by out of our pre jury.
Yeah.
So with all that out of the way, we then go to final 14. And at final 14, we're going to swap into 2 tribes of 7. So we get to this spot, this 2 tribes of 7. And the 2 tribes that we get on Brooklyn, we have Peanut, Gold, Zap, AU, Sean, Ginger Snap, L, Alex. And on the Queen's tribe, we have Malachi, Lisa, Izzy, Tig, Sean, Chip, and Chris. And this is again such an interesting swap because there are multiple people who seem like they could be in a clear minority if their tribe loses. And it's going to be like this challenge is very intensive, but it's a challenge where there's like multiple people on each tribe who are willing to throw and take out a target from the other side if it were a challenge that were easily thrown. So on the Queen's tribe, right? Like it looks like it's at a base level again, not necessarily how it would have exactly played out. There's like Izzy and Tig are the clear people on the bottom. Chip is aligned with Izzy, especially to some extent, as we were talking about during the last tribal. But likely one of those two, Izzy or Tig, would have been in trouble. Especially with Zap being able to ship a bicycle over to Izzy for her to escape the tribal via. It would have left Tig in a really dangerous spot, especially for as well as Tig had just played one episode before. Like Tig was suddenly extremely vulnerable.
Tig was vulnerable, you said?
Yeah, at the final 14, like if his tribe lost, Tig would have been extremely vulnerable.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And on the other tribe, like it seems like the people who are most vulnerable is going to be like Peanut, maybe even Alex. Like there's maybe even a chance where AU Sean ends up not getting to be part of the group. Like there was definitely some talk at one point with like Gold, Zap, Ginger, and L just making a 4 and targeting any of the other 3. And I think it could have gone a couple different ways. I don't think that this was a tribal that was completely set in stone from the second the swap happened.
Thought was interesting is that Gold and Ginger were like talking about how they were worried for Tig and Izzy, but then they were like the ones grinding for the challenge and like putting their all into it, and kind of annoying Elle and Zap a little because they were under the impression that they were trying to throw.
Yeah, I just want to touch on like the throwing aspect. Like they made it so obvious, and that pissed off a lot of people. Like a lot of people, not even just like people from like the minority, like even Tig was like pissed off. Like just the fact that because it came off as like arrogant, it came off as like cocky. It's like like I don't think that they thought about those consequences, that it's like we are in control and we can do whatever we want. Like you guys are on the bottom and so screw you. Like we're just gonna keep having
And
power.
and the
Like,
fact that
obviously
this
that's
creative
not good.
challenge was so hard to throw, like really adds to the stakes of like some people not really wanting to win when
Wait
it's
a
a
second.
challenge that you
I'm thinking of I'm thinking of a different challenge.
but like the fact that this is a challenge that like some people are fine with losing and some people are trying really, really hard to win, like creates such an interesting dynamic in terms of like what's a throw and what isn't when this is a challenge that you can't really actively throw as easily as you might want to, especially as easy as that last challenge that we had just talked about with Zap just completely throwing the drawings. And now here, like they're willing to throw again, but it's nowhere near as easy to throw this time.
I think the most interesting part of this challenge was the fact that we saw how desperate Tig was to try and get immunity on his tribe. Like, he was doing the entire thing by himself because he just didn't want to go to tribal.
And in the end, this obviously ends up working out for Tig. It was actually really interesting the way the vote played out because it started as like a 7-3 vote in favor of Brooklyn's submission, which was the fear of Clown's submission. But gradually, the Queen submission, a Peppa Pig themed fear of feet submission, ended up just like picking up a lot of momentum. With about an hour to go, we got into an exact deadlock tie. And over the course of that last hour, Queen's tribe ends up pulling ahead by about 5 votes and winning the spectator vote. And watching that play out and watching like as the consequences change, as more and more votes come in for who's going to be in danger, like it's really interesting to see this play out. And then even after the Brooklyn tribe loses the challenge, Zap has one heck of a decision to make here. So Zap has the bicycle. In theory, her core alliance has a 4-3 majority here. If they're able to pull someone in, the someone who will end up being AU Sean in, they would have a 5-2 majority. But either way, Zap has the option of taking the bicycle to guarantee her safety, but risking a 3-3 tie vote and all of her allies by doing so. And in her confessional, she's straight up saying, like, if we lose, I am doing this. I don't care. They can deal with the consequences. And like, I legitimately thought Zap was going to play the bicycle. Like, I was shocked when, spoiler alert, Zap ends up not playing the bicycle and sticking around to go through the tribal. Like, that was one of the most surprising decisions just based on how certain Zap had been, like the entire day, that she was going to play the bicycle to only go on and not play it.
Well, she was saying that she would give the bicycle to Izzy to play, not that she would use it on herself.
At one point, she had said, if we lose, I'm using it. If they lose, I'm giving it to Izzy. And like, either way, it's getting used as tribal, so we're both safe. Like, whichever of her or Izzy was on the losing tribe, she wanted to have and use the bicycle.
I think that as the episode went on and as Tribal went on, she kind of realized that she didn't necessarily need it, or that it would have ruined her standing with her allies, or that, like, it just made her, it would make her threat level, which is already really high, just go up even more.
Oh, yeah. Like, I agree that it was the right choice for her not to use it, but it was a right choice that I didn't expect her to get to based on where her head was at earlier in the episode.
I thought that at some point she was gonna give it to Alex or Sean.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
But I don't think that she trusted either of them enough to, like, not expose where they got it from.
Honestly, if she gives that to Alex, that's potentially a complete, like, that could honestly be a game-winning move to give the bicycle to Alex there. Like, that level of trust to demonstrate in Alex, saying, like, get out of here, protect yourself, like, I don't want anything crazy to happen, you should take this. It would get her so much of a boost in Alex's trust, which has been shaky. Now, she would have to realize the degree to which Alex's trust has been faltering in her, and I don't think she has perfect awareness of that. Like, I think she thinks she has a better relationship with Alex still than she actually does, especially still at this point.
Well,
But if she is able to read Alex well enough for it and give it to him as like the ultimate sign of trust, that would be such an incredible move.
During that tribal, she was number 2 on Alex's trust rankings.
Yeah, in terms of the ranking, she was still high for Alex, but like for the last like 3 to 4 episodes, Alex has been talking about like, I'm worried about Zap. I'm like in varying degrees.
Yeah, the way that he views her is pretty interesting because, like, he's been mad at her since she picked him for the team captains things, and he basically thinks that she screwed him, and made him waste his idols. And like ever since then, it's just been more and more distrust in her.
So something like the bicycle to restore his trust would really
Yeah.
cement her position. But, like that wasn't a move that she was able to see her way to, and honestly, I don't think 99% of org players would see that move. So this is not a major criticism of Zap. Like this is the Galaxy Brain move that we can only see from the Spec Lounge.
Thing is that I think that if she did give it to him, he would have been like he would have given it to Peanut. Or he would have taken it and been like went to the other tribe and was like, oh yeah, Zap gave it to me, like she's controlling that tribal again, and just keep building up her threat level. Like I don't think he would have returned the loyalty.
Yeah, like I could see it backfiring. That's interesting. Yeah, it could definitely backfire like that. As things play out, Peanut decides A, that he's on the bottom, and B, that like he needs to try to stir up some chaos. And unfortunately, speaking of things that backfire, this one is gonna leave Peanut very roasted because he like goes into tribal, says hello to everyone, says that he just woke up, immediately goes to submissions, casts a vote, waits for the 1 out of 7 to show up, and then runs back into tribal and says, "Oh my God, who voted?" And that does not go over super well with people. Like it is a little bit too transparent of a play to try to stir up chaos. And like I appreciate the effort in a spot when you know you're on the bottom, but the execution of it was just not really what was necessary. Like if Peanut had wanted to execute that move better, he could like leave his Discord to appear offline, cast his vote, stay offline for like another hour after the 1 out of 7 comes up, turn his light back to online, like after it's been a while, Honusa, hey, I just woke up. Wait, what? Someone's already voted, and like shocked. And it would have worked a lot better. But I think it was like not a horrific idea, but the execution just wasn't what it needed to be.
The moment
Yeah.
that he
Sorry, go ahead.
You go. No, you go.
I was just gonna say, like, he was drunk, so like he really wasn't thinking that through. He said that like if he was sober, he wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, like the moment he sent that in, he didn't have a parchment, and he also like wanted us to put in tribe chat like 1 out of 7. And then as soon as that happened, like he was immediately thrown out as a vote and considered and decided upon.
Now, the thing is, and one of the things that makes this vote very interesting is that Alex obviously was never going to be willing to vote against Peanut. Alex thinks they could have put him in on the vote, but like given that Alex has previously idled Peanut, like I don't think there's any chance Alex actually gets pulled in on that vote. But what is interesting here is that Gold and Ginger decide to like fully sell Peanut and Alex on the plan of voting out Sean and just say like, yes, we have 4 votes against Sean. Like we're gonna blindside Zap and Gold, or sorry, Zap and L and vote Sean out here. And I think this is probably overplaying a little from Ginger and Gold and definitely torching some relationships that didn't need to be torched. I understand the urge, especially because like they want to show some independence they have from Zap to boost their future jury statuses. But I feel like this does more harm than good in terms of what it does to their future relationships.
Oh, they totally overplayed. Totally overplayed. And that is so dumb because they were in such a good position. They were at the top of contenders, I think.
Yeah. We haven't had the new set of contenders come out for the Edgic yet, at least not that I've seen, but that is really gonna hurt their spot as contenders.
Yeah, and like Sean with the AU was all in on like working with the remaining duos and getting as far as he could with them. And then as soon as that tribal happened, well, he got like doubts about it, and he was like, well, why were they so sure that there was going to be votes on me? And then like Alex exposed that Gold and Ginger lied, so now they burned two different options that they had to separate themselves from Zap.
Yeah. In trying to separate themselves from Zap, they electrocuted their own game.
Yeah.
You did that. I find it interesting that like Peanut fell for it.
I mean, I feel like at that point, Peanut was kind of grasping for anything that seemed like it would give him hope, like would be willing to give something if he didn't fully trust it, because that's like because he needed a lifeline, right? So when when you're at the point when you need a horse, you can't look the gift horse in the mouth. Um, so with that, I guess any closing thoughts on Peanut in this season? So Peanut is going to end up getting voted out there 5-2, with the 2 votes of Peanut and Alex landing on you, Sean, here. Any closing thoughts about Peanut's game before we move to our more general discussion of how the rest of the season has been playing out? Well, I'll say that I do think like Peanut brought a certain amount of like scrambling and trying to plan for the future to the season, but unfortunately, especially as some of the swaps went unfavorably and he lost a couple allies, he was left like trying to recover a foothold that was never quite there. Um, I think if he survives that vote, he's again not in a terrible position, but I think that like he was definitely one of the people on the bottom at that point, and some of the other people saw him as less active, not as social. So he was going to have an uphill climb to do to get back into the game, I think. But at the same time, like he wasn't a dead man walking. All right. From there, let's move into talking about some of the twists and advantages that we've had in this season. So, Ashley, one of the first twists that we talked about when we were planning this season was the so-called swapaganza twist, or the swapping every episode twist. Why do you think that that was like such a useful part of adapting the flavor and experience of the book to the gameplay of the season?
Um, So I feel like it ties into like the concept of the book because it's unpredictability, right? And the book concept is like death is unpredictable. So I feel like I want to give a more in-depth answer, but that's really like where I was coming from with this twist. And it's like you never know what's going to happen, just like you never know like when you're going to die, or like I mean, well, in the book, like that you're going to die that day, but you don't know like what time you're going to die that day. And it's like you don't know what will happen. And so you have to like constantly be thinking on your feet.
Yeah, I can definitely see the feel of like being on your feet, of having no time to rest, of constantly being swapped into like these potentially dangerous situations and not knowing whether it's your last moment, right? Like Malachi in that final 15 episode, like, am I the Decker? Like, am I the one who's going out here? Again, in the final 14, like Pig, having that feeling of death itself lurking over your shoulder, having gotten that deathcast call and scrambling to make the best creative submission you can in order to buy one more hour, one more swap in this game, really adds like something of a thematic drive.
Absolutely.
Now, how do you think that it has affected the gameplay of the season so far? I'm opening this up more to the whole floor. How do we feel like having so many swaps has affected the way our players have taken this season?
I think it has. It's interesting because you would expect it to make the game a lot more fluid, right? But somehow we've ended up with these deeply divided sides. So I don't really know how we got here.
I'd say like at the beginning, people were trying to stick to OG Burrow lines, and then once the swaps started occurring, they were like focusing threat level on one person, which was Zap, and then the whole thing became just like everyone versus Zap, and like it's still going on.
Well, I don't know that it's everyone versus Zap because like her allies are writing for her,
No, like yeah, but like I'm talking about like the other side.
One of the interesting things the power structure of this game to what we've seen in some other seasons is that with the swaps, insofar as a power structure exists, it acts as sort of like this big umbrella encompassing across all of the tribes, no matter how many times we swap them. Whereas in some of our other seasons, like especially season 4, but even some of the seasons that aren't season 4, right? We see these power structures build up within a given tribe. And then as we get to a merge or a swap, like the power structures of the tribes have to enmesh themselves within each other, have to clash against each other and see the way the pieces interlock. But here, this singular power structure of the groups that are forming persists through the swaps in part because there are so many, but at the same time, any member of a power group could instantly become vulnerable in any of the swaps as well. So it's a structure that is more static and more fluid, paradoxically, at the same time, because of the way that the structure acts as something above the tribes rather than as something within the tribe.
I feel like too, the swapping has almost made people feel more bold because they're like, well, things are gonna change next round, so I can kind of do whatever the fuck I want, like because who knows? Like I might not even be with these people, and so it's making them be a little bit more risk taking, a little bit more daring, which is kind of stupid, but it's what they're doing. So.
I mean, I think that is part of the point in a high swap season is, right? Timing that precision strike that I can take someone out of this game who is dangerous to my game right now, and there will not be an immediate consequence on this tribe. Yes, it will affect your relationships on other tribes and in the game, but it gives you the chance to make an isolated move without sending the exact same group of people right back to tribal the following episode. Moving from those twists, let's also talk briefly about our duos. How do we think the paired duos based on their interview questions has been shaping this season? And what were some of our goals in like coming up with the duo twist in the first place?
I mean, if we talk about like thematically, then it goes back to like the Last Friends app and the way that Mateo and Rufus met in the book, and you know they met each other through an app, you know, that doesn't necessarily like pair people based on interests, but like their profiles and stuff, and so they meet each other online and they spend their entire last day together, and you know they end up like falling in love or whatever, but like they essentially are ride or dies. They, well, literally. And that's kind of what we were going at here. Like we wanted it to be like it just made sense to do like a duo twist for a book that focused so heavily on like a duo. And so we just like we wanted the focus too to not be on, like, we didn't want them to betray each other, because the focus in the book is like so heavily on love and loyalty and friendship, and so we really wanted to highlight that friendship aspect and that loyalty aspect, and I think we did a damn good job. I think almost every single duo, save for like one or two, have said like that they're a perfect match. So
Yeah, I think Malachi has been the only person this season to actively like sell his duo out and just completely, you know, abandon and betray his duo. And other than Malachi, like pretty much everyone in this game has been in some form like gutted when they lose their duo. Like
I don't know about
pretty
Peanut and Ava, but you know.
I feel like Peanut was like certainly unhappy about it. Yeah, I think they were one of the least attached duos, but even then, like Ava was still consistently towards the top of Peanut's trust rankings.
Well, that's because Peanut had no one else. But you know, yeah.
Pretty sure Eva didn't understand why she was paired with Peanut, like in her
Yeah.
exit interview.
But, like I would say, like out of the duos, again, aside from Malachi, like they were probably the least tightly bonded duo. But like they were still important to each other's game, even if they were less tightly bonded than the other duos.
Yeah.
Like Jack and Saggy were devastated to lose each other. Like
Okay.
Alex's despair at Ricey getting voted out of the game. Like
Which was wild because
when
they did not like each other at first.
when eventually Zap or Izzy leaves this game, like I fully expect the other to be completely gutted by it.
Ellen Tig, oh my god. Well, assuming that, you know, it's because they don't turn on each other, because those two will be turning on each other, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see Ellen Tick turning on each other. I feel like out of the duos remaining, like Gold and Ginger might go to the end together.
yeah, for sure. For sure.
But Izzy and Zap are not gonna make it together. Like if they do, I'll be shocked.
I think that Izzy and Zap would cut each other at final 3 if they made it there, but like not before that.
I don't think they're gonna cut each other.
Even at final 3?
Yeah, I don't unless like one of them gives the other the okay to do it, I don't think they're gonna.
I think they would ride it all the way down to final three. Like if again, assuming that neither one gets taken up before that. But I think at final three, they're both ruthless enough players to pull that trigger when it gets to final three and like not sit against the other at the end. I mean, I'm one to talk, I know, but like I feel like they would. Like it's not like a final 8 situation or final 6 like we could see with Chicken L. Like it would have to be the final 3 for Izzy and Zap to turn.
I think it depends on who's at final 3 for me. Like I don't think I see Zap doing it, but I could see Izzy doing it if the right person is at final 3.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I don't think Zap cares about winning that much.
Yeah.
So with the big game shaping twists aside, some of the advantages this season have also played an interesting role. We've had a couple idols. Each of our idols had a little bit of a drawback or a twist on it. So we have the friendship idol, which was only able to be played on someone else, originally found by Ricey, therefore later ending up in Alex's hands, who used it to, in theory, save Peanut at the tribal that Peanut did not get votes at. Then we had the countdown blog, aka the treasure idol, which casts a vote against you at any tribal that you don't play it. This one was found by Alex, and I think this one ultimately was the most impactful of the idols, both because it saved Alex and because of how like the paranoia of the votes for him revealing things about his game um, affected Alex throughout the rest of the season up until he played it. We touched on that more heavily last episode, so we don't need to rehash the whole thing. But I think that dynamic of if you don't play this, it will vote for you was one of the things that like really worked about as well as we could have hoped for in terms of the reaction it drew from our players, in this case, Alex. From there, we also had the decaying idol, which was found by L, which could, if played immediately, negate up to 10 votes, but decayed by 1 for a maximum of 9 votes after one tribal has passed, etc. And so that decaying idol, which L played and did cancel at least 1 vote, but I don't believe it ended up being necessary at the tribal that L played it. But either way, I think that idol, in terms of its role in the season, played out more or less like a standard idol. But definitely was something that made the episodes interesting, made L have to make a tougher decision about playing it now versus holding it for the future, and led to that need to play it now, which again ties into that urgency, that paranoia, that what will my last day, my last moments in this game look like? And I think that that it ended up being a thematic victory, even if mechanically it played out in a way comparable to a more traditional idol.
This is like kind of off topic, but I just wanted to point out, because I don't remember it being talked about in the other podcast, but like Eva telling L to not play his idol because she was definitely going home was so iconic. Like Ava trying to save L was like, that was so iconic. And L just totally not. listening.
What actually happens in that vote if it was played for Ava, who would have gone out there?
Elle would have been sent out with 1 vote on him.
Mhm.
Oh no, it would have, because Lisa had the self vote, so it would have been the revote between Lisa and Al.
But Lisa
There.
had individual immunity for greed,
Yeah.
so it was
Oh
a no
right,
vote.
okay, yeah. So it would have been, so it would have just been Al going out with the single vote. Wow. Now Al obviously could have like thrown a vote on someone and played an idol for Ava to force a tie or something. Would have been an option if he wanted to, but it ended up not being necessary. All right, and then just of our other miscellaneous twists, advantages, and so on. The other one that really had a big impact this season, we talked about it much more extensively in our previous episode, was the sunset advantage and all the ways that people were able to attempt to hide their vote using it. Really made for like a beautifully chaotic tribal. Again, just playing into that fear, that paranoia, that what moment is it going to come? And giving people the chance to make that like dramatic sudden play and leave everyone scrambling. You know, it's the explosion has gone off in a dark room, but no one knows who said it. And it was a moment that really made very few people completely sure what had happened. And even now, I think some people are under the wrong impression of what happened. Which just goes to show like how long reaching of an impact one of the lowest powered advantages in the season ended up having.
Yeah, because it's not about the strength of the advantage, it's about the way that you use it.
Yeah, exactly. Out of our other advantages, there's the white rock that has been found that will give a rock draw immunity. There's been a
Never
microphone
get
that will
used.
reveal the owner of a vote or the caster of a vote after it has been revealed at tribal. So like a couple of other informational advantages, plus we had the swap captain advantages and the bicycle to escape a swap, or to escape a tribal during a swap phase, I should say, with the one big ticking time bomb out there being Zap's fire making idol, which will, if Zap is either of the top 2 vote getters at the tribal at which it is played, will force an immediate fire making challenge between the top 2 vote getters at that tribal for elimination. And obviously this is an advantage with massive potential to backfire. If you use it at a time when you would have been the second highest vote getter, you would have gotten off free, and now you don't. So that would be like a very intense way for Zap to go out of this game if that happens, but it also gives Zap the chance to make one last stand if we get to a point where she knows she's going home. All right, with that said, I think it is probably as good a time as any to move into our segment. So our first segment will be our current winner picks out of the 13 people who have merged today and are currently about to be competing in the first challenge of the merge. Who do you think is the most likely person to win this game?
Who are we starting with?
You can start, Ashley.
Gold.
Okay. And why do you think that Gold is most likely to win this game?
I mean, he's under fire right now for like lying and overplaying a little bit last time, but you know, like he's so well positioned in the middle and he's so well liked. Like his social game is really good that like I think he can just like get out of this little sticky situation that he's in, and like move forward really well. I just think he's set up really well.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I can definitely see Gold having a chance to win this game. Tristan, who's your winner pick right now?
Probably Zep. I know she has like a high visibility and all that, but I think she can play well enough in the merge to like maybe lower her visibility a little bit, especially with some people overplaying or misplaying lately. To like maybe lower her threat level and have other people closer get targeted, and then maybe go an immunity run if needed. Plus, she still has the fire making idol to bail her out of like at least one tribal if she uses it correctly.
I do want to say, like, we saw this happen with Tara in season 5. Tara was like seen as a really big threat during pre-merge, and then merge hit, and she totally flew under the radar.
Facts.
I mean,
I
she
think the power
lost,
structure is
but that's because she
different
didn't take.
enough
Huh?
that it will be hard for Zap to get as far back under the radar as Tara did.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
but like, you know,
but
it's
I
similar
can see it. No, I can see it. Like I can definitely see it being something that could happen.
I think that Tara was also just overshadowed by me and Jade's rivalry that like no one was looking at her.
Methinks
Yeah,
you
that's
could be
pretty
right.
fair.
And, like there's not really a rivalry here like yet. I mean, there could be, but I don't think Zap has something like that to hide behind.
Yeah, most of the rivalries in this season have been somebody versus Zap anyway, and all of those people now have green text for their names.
Yeah. Should I do my winner pick now?
Sure, go right ahead.
I'm gonna say Izzy just because out of the duos remaining, I think that she's the least connected, like least seen as connected, and then she also has the relationships with the individuals.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I think Izzy's one of the better spots to win this game. I've had Lisa as my winner pick the last couple weeks. I do think Lisa's position in the game has deteriorated a bit, and I don't think she's the top of my board anymore. She's still on my board somewhere, probably third or fourth on my board. But right now I'm actually going to take Malachi as my winner pick. I think that within like the collection of people who've lost their duo partners, Malachi has a pretty strong spot, and most of the biggest targets are on the other side, which means that if he can get through these next couple tribals, I think Malachi is going to be in one of the best positions when the power reshapes itself. And I think he has enough influence to not be the immediate target, and he just has to survive like 2 or 3 votes before the power structure will reshape from the duo civil war. So with that out of the way, moving from our winner pick segment to our character appreciation segment, who is someone still in the game who has consistently been bringing it as a character so far this season.
Wait, Elk, I have a
Roman, why don't
question.
you start us off?
Yeah. Can we, for these segments, can we choose people who have been picked for previous segments?
Yeah, for this time we'll keep it like not repeating within a segment, but we'll allow repeats across segments. So we'll start with Roman this time. Who's your character appreciation pick out of the players remaining in the game?
I'm gonna go with Zap. Like she's always entertaining in her CFs. I don't know. Like, yeah.
I think that pick makes a lot of sense. I think Zap has been one of the biggest characters on this season, probably the front runner right now to end up number 1 in our overall character rankings at the end of the season, depending on how things play out over the next, 11 episodes or so. So a lot of green left for things to change over. Ashley, who are you going to take for your character appreciation segment this time?
I would say L, because like L has his moments of like being a catty, mean bitch, but like in a way that's like you can tell that he's playing a character and he's like not actually malicious. And it's like we need like this is villain Viber. Like we need a villain. Like I think Elle is like our villain. I do, and like I really like seeing that in him, even though sometimes I'm kind of like, Elle, like tone it down a little bit, but like he's also like he's just also like very dedicated to the game. You can tell that through his confessionals, and it's like I just really like, I don't know, I love this like persona that he plays. It's very fun. He's also
And I
hot.
can absolutely see that.
Oh my god. Oh.
He is. Have you seen him? Oh my god.
Moving on extremely quickly from that, I'm going to move to my character appreciation pick for today with Chris. I think that on quite a few different levels, Chris has been one of our best characters this season. Really encompassing the themes of tragedy in this season, as he has lost basically everyone that he didn't want to lose up to this point, and yet his scramble, his desperation, his looking for ways to reshape the game in his favor, and surviving to fight another day is really one of the most interesting journeys to watch this season. His reactions can be very over the top at times, but in a way that is believable, emotional, stirring, and I really think that Chris has been bringing a lot, especially in the last couple episodes, as he is spinning his wheels frantically at the mud that's slipping away under him, and just trying to find like any semblance of traction in the pouring storm that he's found himself in. Over to you, Tristan. Who is your character appreciation segment today?
I cannot pick someone that you guys have already said, correct?
Right within this segment.
Oh, geez.
So that is Zap,
you-
Elle, and Chris are off the board.
yeah, you have to give me a second to look because those like you guys kind of picked like the three best options here.
Oh, like the
Um,
characters have been voted off.
yeah. Um, I guess I'll go with Lisa because they're kind of in the same boat as Chris. Um, we've seen Lisa throughout the season. It's been I don't know. I kind of see myself in what they're going through, where every tribal just doesn't go their way, and they have like zero agency in the game, and it sucks. It's literally like exactly what happened to me in season 6, so I can sympathize with that. Um, and yeah, no, they just you can tell that like they care a lot about the season, and you know, granted, it's taking its toll on them from time to time. She hasn't given up. She's still like trying, and I respect that. So she will be my character appreciation pick for this podcast.
All right, and we've got one more segment here that we always close off with, the Dunchain, the person out of our remaining players in the game who will not win this season, either because they cannot win a jury vote or because you cannot see any way for this person to still make it to the end from where we are today. Tristan, who's your pick for the Dunchain? I'll let you start us off since I made you go last time.
I'm gonna go with Malachi, because they kind of like everybody else in the minority has like some agency, kind of like even Sean's been picking it up, and Malachi is in like a couple alliances, but I don't know. He hasn't really done a whole lot this season and stuff. And like, while I do find it impressive that he always knows what's going on, literally nobody ever talks about him in like their confessionals. like obviously he gets mentioned because everybody gets mentioned in people's confessionals, but he
No.
probably has been mentioned like the least, I'd say.
I like cannot remember the last time I saw anyone talk about Malachi. Like,
Yeah, like it's insane. Like people talk more about Sean, like AU Sean, which is, like not like ragging on him, but like he's been like a lower visible player. He hasn't been, super involved like socially because he hasn't done the best with DMing. But yeah, Malachi just doesn't get much mention from other people, so it's hard for me to really garner how much people trust him or how they think of him as an ally because yeah, he just doesn't really get mentioned in people's confessionals. So I can't see him winning when I don't see people speaking on him, for me personally.
It's interesting. I can understand where you're coming from on that. Roman, who's your Dunchain pick for today?
Okay. I think I'm gonna go with Alex just because I think that Alex's paranoia is like starting to take a toll on some of the other players. And I do think that him and Lisa are not gonna have like the greatest time getting along at merge. I think that he's very frustrated at this point in the game, and I don't know if he's gonna be able to fix his path right now. Like I have hopes for him, I just don't see him making it right now. That's
Yeah,
it.
I'm definitely on the same page there. I think Alex has the hardest road of anyone left in the game to make it in the end. I think between his threat level being as high as it is, enough of his relationships being as strained as they are, and his paranoia starting to take a little bit of a toll on the people around him as this sort of aura of anxiety. I agree that Alex is in a lot of trouble in this game in terms of lowest chances to make it to the end. That's not to say he can't turn things around or that he's on death's door right now. I can see a world where he's able to turn around a little bit. I just don't see the world where he's able to convert that into an FTC appearance. Ashley, with Malachi and Alex off the board, who's your pick for the Dunchain?
I would have to say Sean because Sean is
Which
getting
Sean?
Shaun because poor Sean our I think our no, I was gonna say our only minor left, but Tig is 17. Our 16-year-old of the cast is getting used by the rest of the cast as a number hardcore. And yeah, I really don't like Sean straight up tells people like I don't want to talk to you. Basically. I mean, not like in those words, but like hints at it, and is like leave me alone. And like, but like he thinks that he's like doing really well. Like he thinks he's a step below those who are running the tribe, and it's like I don't see him putting on a really wonderful FTC performance, even against like Chip, who doesn't know how to do an FTC. Like I just like don't see it happening, unfortunately. Because that sucks. Because Sean is like really nice, but like I don't see it. I see Sean getting to the end, but yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can see what you're talking about when you put it that way, especially in terms of like projecting forward what we think Sean's FTC would look like. I can see how that would be a very hard FTC for him to convert, especially with the people that he's put off with the way he doesn't engage with them and things like that. I could definitely see that coming back to bite him, potential FTC scenario. My pick here for the Dunchain is going to be a little controversial, but my original pick has already been taken off the board because I was going to pick Alex here as well. I'm going to say that I do not see L winning this game. Um, I think that L is one of the better players on this cast, and I think that L's newfound detente with Lisa is going to potentially help put L even in a power position over the next week or so of this game. But I think the fact that Tig is already on to L and is not going to sit with L at the end, see the fact that other people are starting to see, like, especially if Zap goes out, that L is going to be one of the more visible threats left in the game. I don't see L making it past like the final four because I don't think there's going to be anyone who's willing to sit with him at the end. And he's going to have to comp out like 3 to 4 comps in a row to get there. And I haven't seen anything that's going to convince me that L can win like 4 endgame competitions in a row, especially if his own duo partner is willing to blindside him in the endgame.
I do have to say, L has gotten really cocky lately.
Yeah.
Like I think part of it is the persona slash character, but like Ella's getting like the season 42 high treatment. Like, yikes.
Yeah, to put it in terms of season 42, like he's definitely high on his own supply right now.
Yeah, I think that's going to be his downfall. And you can see it like in him like trying to make these deals with Lisa. Like he thinks he's doing that because he thinks that he can get away with doing whatever he wants. Like he feels fucking unstoppable, you know? And he's and that's why I think Tig is going to like completely fucking blindside him. Like I do think Tig is
I think L is going to be maybe devastated too, like when Tig blindsides him. Like I see that potentially being one of the most torched jury votes in the history of Villain Viver.
Yeah, I think it's going to be because like L thought that he could control the fuck out of Tig.
I see
L is
L
going to be
voting for
storming
Tig
into
if he does it.
Really? Oh, I see L being
Yeah.
the one who will be storming into Ponderosa. Like, you'll not believe what this guy did. Like, okay, he might cool down over the course of whenever it is he's voted out until FTC. But like, I fully expect him to be like storming into Ponderosa, like working Tig's game, or at least trying to.
Oh yeah, I see him trying to, but I think at the end, you know, like if it is Tig sitting at the end, I think he will like end up voting for Tig, you know.
Yeah, that's fair. Most of our historically torched jury votes have actually come around at the end, even if they came into FTC like extremely angry. Some didn't. Many.
Boofus.
Oh my god. I knew that was gonna come up.
But like even in season 3, right? Like Blue ends up voting for Iris there. Right? Like just like I would say Blue is one of the most angry jurors we've had in terms of immediate reaction to boot. And like even as of the start of FTC was incredibly angry. Granted, in that case he was angry at both of us. But like I think that yeah, people can come around at the end, especially depending on how the FTC plays out. All right. Any other closing thoughts as we head into our merge? All right, with all that said, we thank you for joining us here today on the Villain Viver podcast, covering episodes 9 and 10 and taking a holistic look at the twists and advantages of Season 8 Deathcast Calling based on the popular novel They Both Die at the End. Whether you've been listening to us live in the Spectator Lounge, or whether you're joining us on YouTube after the fact, or whether you were here for a little bit and are catching the rest later, thank you so much, and I hope that you've had a wonderful evening listening to this coverage of our season. This has been Alk, and along with me today has been
Ashley. Crickets.
Roman.
Oh, okay. I want to like say it like to save time, but yeah, it's been Trishan as well. Yeah.
all right. We hope you will tune in and join us next time on the Villain Viver podcast.
Bye.